Okay. So you got this. He's saying, and if she could identify one, he said I also took some pictures from the living room window and two or three from outside the street level. I have labeled each one as to where they were taken from and what they depict. As you can see, there is no way she could have seen what she said she saw. I measured the distance from the front door of the house on Rita Lane to the window where she said she was in the trial. She could not have been able to tell the difference between a Tennessee tag and an Alabama tag, especially if the car was back then. So he's saying that the distance is 175 feet, which is almost 60 yards. That's almost 60 yards away. But when she testified, she said that she could measure it from right there in the courtroom. Y'all remember I showed y'all when she was questioned about how far were you away from where you were telling us, and she said it's not far. It's like right across the street, you know. So when we sent the investigator out, we found out that it was quite different. All right, now here is the police detective Brent Patterson. He was asked on cross-examination. He says, okay, and from what you observed, was the house she was living in, and was it obstructed as far as the view of Perry Run Roberts' house? No obstructions. So from the window of the house, you could have easily seen which side of Perry Run's, the front. Okay. So he's saying that she did not have an obstructed view and that she could see everything she was testifying to. But you see the investigator saying there is no way she could have seen what she said she saw. Okay, so someone's lying and someone's telling the truth. And so how do we find out? Well, we got evidence. Because at trial, prior to trial, they would not disclose Miss Molootsi's name to us, her address. We didn't know anything about her until she got on the witness stand. So we didn't even have the ability to investigate her testimony. My lawyer could have requested a continuance, or he could have went after trial, but he didn't do either. So I hired a private investigator after trial to go and investigate what this woman was saying, because she did not know the day that the crime occurred on. She did not know the date that it occurred. She did not know the month. And so we were like, it was strange that they would not disclose to us who she was. And when she got on the witness stand, she did not know anything. She could not identify the person that lived there. She said she did not identify him, but she's identified me from viewing me for 10 seconds. And I showed y'all that in her testimony. She said her view was on for 10 seconds. And so these are the photographs that Mr. Fox was telling y'all that he took. And let's see, we're gonna just go with let's go with these first. We'll start with these. Okay. This is taken from the kitchen window where Molootsi says she lived. As you all can see, her view is obstructed. There is a big ass oak tree in her backyard. And y'all are looking at that. Taken from kitchen window of 5001 Loris Circle. This is the house that she's saying, that the state is saying the crime was committed. Not this house, this one. This is the house that she's saying she saw all of these things, and you just saw the officer testify that the view was not obstructed. More from the kitchen window. From the kitchen window, zoom. From the kitchen window. All of these are photographs taken. He took one from the driveway. Even from the driveway, ground level, she said she was in the window. She said she was in her window, in her kitchen, what she was giving testimony from. She said, I was ready to go to work. I went to the kitchen and the blinds were open. I went ahead and peeped through the window. She looked out the window of her kitchen, and that's what she's testifying to. But we see that that's impossible. For one, the distance is too far. Okay? And so these are the photographs that Mr. Fox took of the layout of her house. This one is from the driveway. From the driveway. And this is the house next door, which she could see. And this is the house. And you heard the officer say there were no obstructions. Okay. This is the picture that we have from outside of her house. have all of these obstructions. And then when you go back to the Batts residence, look, you see a telegram pole, and you see the telegram pole and a tree in their yard. But yet she testifying no obstructions to her view from the testimony she was giving at trial. Clearly she was giving false testimony. And so the question is, who provided her with this false testimony? And I know y'all saying, well, how do you know someone provided her with some testimony? Okay, well, first thing, I want to go back to some of these trees, what y'all are seeing. Okay, he says, this is Mr. Fox again. He said, the first thing the DA is going to say about these pictures were taken in September and the murder took place in March. Well, that's true. However, the tree blocking the view from the kitchen window on Laura Circle is a red oak tree. Its leaves turn bright red in the fall and don't fall off the tree until mid-April when the new green leaves push them off. I was raised in the mountains and am very familiar with hardwood trees and their leaves. I also asked Mr. Dixon, the man who now lives at 511 Laura Circle, and he said that he has been living there almost 3 years and the leaves stay on the tree all winter long. So we have this proof that this view was obstructed. We have these pictures, we have this testimony, and yet we still have this false testimony. Okay, hold on just a second. I want to point something else out in Miss Molootsi's testimony. Okay, here we go. Now remember, Fred Batts said that he was driving a rental car. He said he came up, he said, I went to Melvin House, I arrived. He asked me for the keys to the rental car I was using. Okay, Fred Batts said he had a rental car. He said that I asked him, do you still have the rental car? And I told him, yeah. Okay, Miss Molootsi's testimony is this. She said that, wait a minute, let me find it. Let me make sure I got this because I want y'all to see this because they were holding the bedspread to me. Remember, she said she got the view for 10 seconds. She said, I saw him for about 10 seconds. That's about as long as you had. I understand it could have been a little more or less, but it was a window of a few seconds. All right. Okay. Where's 230? Okay, I can't find page 230 for some reason. Let me track down page 230 because I want y'all to see what's going on here. Okay. I'm going to get back to page 230. I know I got it here somewhere in front of me. I just can't find it. I got so much stuff spread it out. But anyways, on page 230, Miss Molootsi testified that she saw a rental car. Right there's the last word, car. And the lawyer said, now you say it was a rental car. How would you know it was a rental car? Did the police tell you that? No. Because it was from Tennessee or something like that. Now, the question is, how would Molootsi know that the car parked in the driveway 175 feet away from her house, 175 feet? How would she know that that car is a rental car? How can she look at a car and say that's a rental car unless someone told her? How would she know? You telling me you see a car riding down the street, you can say, oh, that's a rental car? And second, how could she read the tag from 175 feet away? How would she be able to read a car tag 60 yards away from where she's looking, over the house, through the trees, through the forest, through all of these different obstructions of her view? How can she say that she saw a rental car? How is that possible? How can she look through that and see a car and know it's a rental car just from looking? It doesn't make sense. And so we have this woman who's testifying. She doesn't know the day of the crime. She doesn't know the date of the crime. She don't know anything. She just knows that it is her job to get up there and say, I saw him, Melvin Ray. That's it. That's the only thing she testified. Nothing else corroborates her. Fred Bass said he drove my car to the house. She said she didn't see another. You know, so none of this stuff is adding up. She said she only saw a white car. It was a rental car. How does she know it's a rental car? She said the car was backed in. Alabama's not a state that require front and back tags. So if the tag is on the back of the car and the car is backed in, how does she know what kind of tag is even on the car? You know, so you have all of these different discrepancies that came about. And yet, this is the type of testimony that was used to take my life away. This is the type of testimony that they relied on to get this conviction. Here's page 230. It was a white car, sort of like a rental car. So, how do you know it's a rental car? What is sort of like a rental car? What does that mean? Now you say it was a rental car. How do you know? How do you know it's a rental car? It don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? She can't describe nothing. The only person she can identify is me. I don't even live here. I don't live in this woman's community. In a 10-second span, she's able to identify me. But the person who lives there, been there every day, she can't identify him. He said he drove a Lexus. How can she miss a Lexus? She was not required to know anything. Only thing they wanted her to do was say, that's him. And incidentally, she was interrogated. They come up with her on Monday, March the 29th, after they interrogated Fred Bass on Sunday, March the 28th, and told him that I was a suspect. They told him that I was a suspect. Not no evidence, not no facts. They told him that I was a suspect. The police did. And that's in their files. That's in the record. That's what he said. You know? So, I mean, this thing is not too complicated and not too hard to figure out. You know, so that's what we're doing. We're exposing the courts, what goes on inside of these courtrooms, how people become, how people become suspects in the case. The interrogator is giving you a name and telling you Melvin Ray is a suspect. The very next day, they come up with this witness, Joan Molootsi, who testified that her house is right across the street, and then we go and investigate and find out she's over 60 yards away and couldn't possibly see what she's saying she saw. And so that's what we're trying to do is expose all of the elements of corruption in all phases of this. And the kicker. Here's the kicker right here. I'm fixing to show you. Just give me 1 second. Okay, this is the kicker right here, y'all. I told y'all that mass incarceration is systematic. And why y'all didn't tell me I had my shirt on backwards? Y'all should have stopped me and said, hey man, you got your shirt on backwards. But anyway, when I raised this claim to court, this is what the court said. It says that I had raised an objection and discredited evidence that would have discredited Joan Molootsi testimony while she was looking out of her window. This is what the court said. It said, however, because the state was concerned about Molootsi's testimony, it did not concerned about her safety. It did not disclose her name or address before she testified at trial. As I told y'all, we didn't know who she was until the second she took the witness stand. And we didn't even have the ability to do an investigation, to go to her house and take pictures to see if we had been able to done that before trial. We probably would have been able to bring all these facts out at trial. But because the state was engaging in misconduct, they were withholding this information, so I never got a chance to get it. And so the court just told y'all that. And it said it did not disclose her name or address for it. He said, therefore, trial counsel could not have investigated the view from Molootsi's house before trial. It said, additionally, investigator Brent Patterson of the Madison County Sheriff's Department testified that Molootsi's house had an unobstructed view of the front of Robert's house, and that her house, let me slow down, had an unobstructed view of Robert's house, and that her house was about 50 yards from Robert's house. Finally, the evidence that the appellant submitted in support of his petition did not show that at the time of the murder, trees would have obscured Molootsi's view of Robert's house. Okay, so they telling me that the state does not have to disclose this woman's information before trial. And then when I find out after she testifies that what she's testifying to is false, he's saying, well, you didn't prove that at trial. But I never had an opportunity. How can I prove it? How can I prove that the tree did not show that at the time of the murder, trees would have obscured her view when I got evidence showing that when they testified that her view was unobstructed, that it was false? All these pictures show that her view was obstructed. You cannot see the house on Rita Lane from Molootsi's kitchen window where Mr. Fox went and took his pictures. There's the tree. There's the tree. The court is saying I did not present any evidence in support and did not show that at the time of the murder. You see what I'm saying? It's a no-win situation with the court. I never, but the investigator, Mr. Fox, said right here in his own, he said, I asked Mr. Dixon. He said that he's been living in the house almost 3 years now, and that it stays on, and that the leaves stay on, the leaves stay on the tree all winter long. He said he was raised in the mountains. It's an oak tree. How can I prove it if they will never give me an opportunity to come into court to prove it? Let me come into court. Let me present the testimony of my investigator. Let me present the testimony of Mr. Dixon, and let me show that this woman's testimony that her view was unobscured is an outright lie. She's telling a lie. That's not the only lie she's telling. I mean, it's obvious that this woman's testimony is fabricated. So that's what I'm doing with this evidence. I'm just setting out, showing and proving that the state manufactured a case against me, went and recruited a witness. This woman literally does not know the date, or the month of the crime. She don't know nothing. She don't know nothing but what she's supposed to do, and that is to say, I saw him. I saw him. That's it. Why wasn't she asked to identify the other person? What would she say? I can't identify him? Why is it that she can identify me after the police are telling Fred Batts, that's the man we want? We want Melvin Ray. I can't say it don't make sense, because it do, because it's so clear what's going on. And so that's what I'm trying to prove, what's really going on. I'm trying to find a part in the transcript. Okay, here we go, right here. This is my lawyer talking to her. Miss Molootsi, as we sit here today, you're not exactly sure what day you saw the person that you think was Melvin Ray and this other person. But I know the date. What is the date? The 22nd. Okay. Mr. Horton was killed on the 26th. March 26th. Okay. So you think the date was the 22nd? Yes. Of what month? April. Just the record, trial transcript. Pull my transcript up. You'll see it right there, page 221. Of what month? April. Mr. Horton was murdered in March. In March. You know what happened April 22nd? What happened in April? I turned myself in to the NAACP office in Huntsville, Alabama, April the 19th. They obviously went to this woman after I turned myself in and said, hey, we need to identify this guy. 3 days later, she's involved with something where she's identifying me. Okay, so according to you, Ms. Molootsi, the date you saw my client and Mr. Batts, or the person he states is Batts, was April the 22nd. April 22nd of 99. I mean, I don't know how much more clear this thing can be about what's going on with this lady Molootsi. Okay. That would be a Friday afternoon. You agree with that, Miss Molootsi? No. You don't think it was on a Friday afternoon?